So, my dear friends in Christ, I am very grateful for the opportunity to come and share with you some thoughts on parenting. We all know that when you buy a machine or any gadget, there is always a manual that guides you as to how to use the machine. So that if, for instance, you bought a Nokia phone, there's a manual to tell you how to use the phone. So that if, for instance, a call comes in, you know where to press to pick or to receive the call. And when you buy a different type of phone, there's also a manual that guides you. Now, if you like to use your knowledge in operating Nokia phone to operate another type of phone, you may not get it right. So even with the things that human beings manufacture, there is always a manual that guides us. So also, if, for instance, you bought a car, and it's maybe a BMW model, the knowledge in moving that car may be different from the knowledge in moving a different type of car, for instance, a Toyota model. But when it comes to the human being, is there anything like a manual telling you how to understand the human being? So there's nothing like a manual. So how do we come to understand the human being? And then more importantly, even know how to understand and raise a human being such that even his needs or her needs are met. That is the challenge. So there are two perspectives, and I hear you had a talk on temperament. So on temperament, they give you a very simple definition as the inborn part of man that determines how the person reacts to people, to places, and to things. So temperament is inborn. You are born with it. The human being is born with his temperament or with her temperament. Now, when you are born, you come into an environment. And whatever that goes on in the environment determines, to a large extent, who you become. Now, as parents, as caregivers, and even as a church, what kind of environment do we create to help young ones who are born into the family or into the church grow, such that we can understand them and even get the best from them? So to help us in this contest or in this discussion of parenting, there is this scholar by name Erik Erikson, a psychoanalyst, who gives us 8 stages of development. From the time that the person or the child is in the womb to the time that the child is born and the child lives in the world, there are needs that must be met. And according to Erik Erikson, when these needs are met, they come with corresponding rewards, blessings. But when they are not met, then there is also a punishment. So we'd like to go through the 8 stages and see how we can apply them to ourselves as parents, as caregivers, and even as a church. The first stage, as you can see on the screen, is from age 0 to age 1. Age 0 to age 1. And according to Erik Erikson, when a child is at this stage, the need is trust. The need is trust. When this need is met, then it comes with a reward of a hopeful attitude towards life. Now, what does it mean when it says the need is trust? Infants view the world as consisting of people who can be trusted and who also cannot be trusted. So when, for instance, the child is in the womb or the child is born, The child definitely needs care, needs security, needs food, needs safety, needs affection. When these needs are given in a very consistent manner by caregivers, by parents, then the child develops trust in the caregiver and in the parent. But when they are not given in a consistent manner, then there is mistrust. So that is why you have on the screen trust versus mistrust. So as to whether the child will grow and have a very hopeful attitude towards life, it depends on what we do as caregivers. It depends on what we do as parents. So if you do not create that atmosphere of trust, where, for instance, the needs of the child are met in a very consistent manner, then already, as a child, there is mistrust. So the child will grow and will have difficulty trusting others. When the child is relating with people, there will be suspicion, there will be doubt. So let me give you some examples. Normally they say that when a woman is pregnant, the state she is in determines the state of the child. So for instance, when the woman is in a very happy state all the time as she's carrying the baby, the child is finally born and the child is a very happy child. But if the woman is carrying the baby and she's always angry, always having a quarrel with the husband or the people around, the child who is also born finds himself or herself in that situation. So the state of the mother carrying the baby determines the state of the child. I remember about 8 years ago when a young lady came to me to tell me that she wanted to have her marriage blessed. So I said to her that there is the need for marriage counseling for 6 months. And she felt that the 6 months was too long. So she wanted it for just about a month. So I said to her that was not possible. She went and brought the mother to come and convince me to do it. So I insisted that the 6 months must be done before. Finally, the man who wanted to marry the young lady also came. And then he said to me that, "Father, I know that this is my destined partner. So please, just do the 1 month for us and let's have the marriage blessed." But I said to him, it's not possible. Later on, I discovered that the lady was apparently 2 months pregnant. So that was why they wanted the 1 month, so that just after that, they will have the marriage blessed. Now, after about 7 months, this woman discovered that the man who had wanted to come and have the marriage blessed was actually married to another woman outside the country. So there was disappointment, there was pain, there was grief. This young woman would never go through the day without crying. Every day she was crying because she was heavily disappointed. She could not believe it that the man actually had a wife and was promising her heaven on earth. Now, this young lady finally gave birth to a very beautiful baby girl. But if you can cry more than this baby girl, they will arrest you. Anytime anybody even came closer to this girl, this baby, she will start crying. So the effect of the mother's situation is seen or manifest in her behavior. So why is she crying all the time? Because at the time that the mother was carrying her, she was crying. And that has impacted negatively on the baby. So the state the mother is in definitely determines the state the child will be in. Then also, I remember this situation where a priest who had written a book titled Healing the Family Tree. The priest's name is McCall. He is an exorcist and is also a clinical psychologist. So this young man was brought to him for prayers. He prayed for the young man, but still the problem was there. And what was the problem? Anytime this young man saw a military person, he behaved in a very funny way. And anytime he came across a hospital, he would behave in that funny way. And the mother could not understand what was happening to the son. So they had prayed and prayed, and still nothing was happening. So after the priest who had prayed without success, he decided to use his knowledge in clinical psychology to find out what actually might have happened at the time of birth, time of pregnancy and time of birth. So he decided to interview the mother of this young man. In the course of the interview, the woman remembered that when she was about a month or two pregnant, she was working in a hospital. And there was this military man who was on admission. In the process, the two of them fell in love. And she had an affair with the man at the time that she was carrying the baby. So when the woman said this, and the prayer was offered for the young man became okay. Meaning that at the time the mother was carrying him, the sin committed by the mother had a negative effect on him. So the priest in that book, Healing the Family Tree, talks about what we do at the time of pregnancy. It can impact negatively or it can impact positively on the babies we carry in our womb. It is very interesting, but it is true. I also can give you another example of a young lady who was brought to me for counseling. And what was the problem? Anytime she's in the classroom and she wanted something and she was denied, she will begin to throw tantrums. She will begin to make noise and behave as if she's possessed. So she too, the parents brought her for prayers. And even at home, whenever she does not get what she wanted, she will behave in a very funny way, as if somebody who is possessed. So I interviewed the parents, only for me to discover that when she was in the womb, the father was very rich. And the father pampered her whilst in the womb. And when she was finally born, there was nothing she would ask for that she will ever be denied. And everything she was given made her feel so special. She was actually pampered. Now, as she was growing up, business did not go the way it used to go. So the father did not have the financial capacity as he had before. So now she asked for something and she's told to wait. And as she begins to cry, she begins to throw tantrums as if she's not loved. Because psychologically she's been conditioned to believe that when I ask for something and I'm given, it means I am loved. When I ask for something and I'm not given, it means I'm not loved. So if I ask for something and I'm not given, it means I'm not loved. So I begin to try and cause commotion just to receive attention. So my dear friends, the point I would like to make over here, flowing from the argument of Erik Erikson, is that when a child is at this stage of development, from age 0 to age 1, the need is trust. The trust must be built by the caregivers, by the parents, where the needs are met in a very consistent manner. So if you made a promise to a child that, oh, I'm going to town, when I come back, I'll buy aeroplane for you. And you come back and you don't buy anything for the child. Next time when you say to the child will not believe you. So if the child finds himself or herself in an environment where promises are never kept, then when that person grows up and he even marries, and the wife makes a promise, he will doubt it, because over the years he has been conditioned in that way. So whatever you say you will do to a child at this stage, my dear friends, let us fulfill it. And that's the only way that the child can have a hopeful attitude towards life. That's also the only way that the child's self-confidence can be built. Stage 2, it's from age 1 to age 3. It's actually age 1 to age 3. Over there we have age 2 to 3, but it's 1 to age 3. And the need is autonomy. Autonomy. And when that need is met, there is a sense of self-confidence. There is mastery over one's emotions. There is mastery over one's thoughts and one's behavior. What do we mean by autonomy? Every child at this age, as we know, tries to develop this sense of autonomy by doing things by himself or herself. So for instance, you had a child around this stage, at this stage over here, the child may want to walk and climb the sanctuary. The child may want to even climb the pew. The child will want to do things by himself or herself. And that's how this sense of autonomy is built. So imagine that you have a child. I can see one child doing exactly what I'm saying at the back over there. Moving freely, doesn't want to be controlled. So if now he wants to climb the pew, and as a parent, you go and then carry him to put him on the pew, what you're actually doing is killing that sense of autonomy. Because the child wants to exercise autonomy. So if you go and carry him and put him on the pew, and everything you are doing it for the child, it means that the child will grow and will always have to depend on others. But if, for instance, the child wants to climb the pew, and because you are afraid that it's a risky thing, you go with your hands supporting the child, and at the same time allowing the child to attempt it, it means that you are helping the child to exercise that sense of autonomy. And it's only in that context that the will is strengthened. That sense of self-control is developed. Mastery over one's emotions, thoughts, and behavior is also developed. The problem, however, is that parents try to overprotect and overpamper their children. And the example I gave in the first stage perfectly applies also over here. Because if the parents had not pampered their daughter, and now she wants something she's not getting, she would have gotten used to it. But when the child is over-pampered, and then she grows and doesn't get what she wants, it creates a problem. And that is why when that sense of autonomy is not met, then there is doubt, there is shame, And that becomes like the punishment when the sense of autonomy is not met. So parents therefore are advised not to overprotect, not to overpamper their children. If not, it will lead to a problem in future. Closely linked to this is the third stage. The third stage, stage 3. We have from age 3 to age 6. Age 3 to age 6. As you look on the screen, what is the need over there? Initiative versus correct. So as I said earlier on, it follows the second one of autonomy, which occurs during preschool years, because the child's motor and mental abilities would have developed fully at this stage. Now imagine a child at this stage, so maybe in KG1. The child goes to school and learns how to draw. And the child is so happy about what he's been able to do and comes home ready to show it to the parents. Now it happens that the father doesn't close from work early. So the child is at home very anxious, waiting for the parents to come so that he can show the drawing to the parents. So the mother is the first to come, but she comes around 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock p.m. She herself is very exhausted. And all she wants is to get home and go and have some rest. Now this child hears that the mother has come and he's so excited. So he runs to the mother. Mommy, 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 see what I've drawn. Don't you see, can't you see that it's very beautiful? The child is very happy about it. But if at that time, the mother, because she's so exhausted, gives a response like this: "Oh, could you just go and put it away? I'll look at it later." What do you think will happen to that child with this kind of reaction? Hello? What do you think will happen to the child? Disappointment. Do you think that the child will do that again the next day? No. So you see, the child has taken an initiative, which is so happy about. But the response or the environment has killed that initiative. So instead of having that sense of purpose in life, which would have been the reward for the initiative, there is now guilt. Oh, maybe I didn't do it well. Oh, maybe I'm not that good. So because of that kind of interpretation given to the whole experience, that child may never take that initiative again. So the child will grow, but the sense of initiative will be very low, if not absent. And there are times that we're working with people, and then we expect that they will take an initiative, and they're not taking it, and we don't understand why. For instance, the person is working in an office, and she's alone in that office. The bulb is dead. And she doesn't see the need to even have it changed. She's waiting for the employer to come and have it changed. If you go into it, something might have happened when she was at this stage. I was having a discussion with a lady friend of mine because the parents were worried that at her age, she's still antisocial. And when it comes to being relating with men, her behavior for the parents is not normal. She hardly comes to the house with any man, even as a friend. So when I was chatting with her, I was trying to go into the whole, behavior, what her perception was about men. And then I was pleasantly surprised to know that when she was around this stage, one time, as she was in the house, they had a story building. So she was up there, I think on the first floor, and then she saw two animals mating on the down floor. And as a young person, she was just wondering what was happening. So she was looking on. I was wondering. The father came from behind to see what she was looking at. So the father came, "Bad girl, what are you looking at?" Then the father just pulled her away from the place. So what registered in her mind is that anytime you see two animals or human beings, male and female, coming so close, it means that there's something bad happening. So she will hardly even hug somebody freely, when especially the person is a male friend, because that was her experience. And anytime a man comes very close, that experience comes up. It just pops up like that. Initiative versus guilt, the third stage. We come to the fourth stage, age 6 to age 12. And Eric Erickson says, at this stage, the need is industry. And when this need is met, the reward is a sense of competence. A sense of competence. That becomes the reward for the need. But when the need of industry is not met, then there is inferiority. We've heard of inferiority complex. My dear friends, what it means is that from age 6 to age 12, every child already has something unique. And if teachers, parents, and caregivers are very observant, they can tell what the future of the child is at this stage. Because at age 6 to age 12, the child is in the primary school. From class 1 to class 6. And if we look at the goal of education, which has in mind, or which has the development of three important areas, what we call the 3 H's: the head, the heart, the hand. So the head being cognitive, the heart being affective, the hand being psychomotor. So every child is very unique. There's at least one part that is very pronounced, that is very dominant. So if parents, if caregivers, if teachers observe carefully, they will know which area the child is best at. I remember some time ago when a man came to my office with a wife, and they were troubled because their daughter, who was in one school, was often found in the company of her friends cracking jokes. So anytime they went to the school, the child was in the midst of her friends, like a comedian, making them happy and all that. Meanwhile, when it comes to her academic performance, she was always, the last but one or the last but two in a class. And the parents were worried. So when they brought their child, I asked the child in the presence of the parents, "What would you like to become in future?" And she said to me, "Father, I would like to become an accountant." Now I took her into the inner office and asked her the same question: "What would you like to become in future?" "An actress." So you see, in the presence of the parents, she wants to become what? An accountant. But in the absence of the parents, she wants to become an actress. So I asked her reason and who her role models were. And when she began to mention names, then I realized how serious she was about becoming an actress. So you see that this child already has something which is very unique. But the parents do not know. They think that by taking her from one school to another, she will be okay, she will do better academically. But that will not solve the problem. Because in fact, when they came to me, they had already gone to another school with a child, and the same behavior. When you go to Westminster Cathedral in London, my first experience on a Sunday over there was this. At Mass, I realized that the choristers were all young ones. There was no adult in the choir, at least for the Mass I attended. All of them were children. So after Mass, I asked why they have children for the choir. Only for me to be told that the church has a music school, so that the children who have that charisma, that interest, are brought in there and they are trained in church music. And they're the ones who grow to compose the hymns we sing. So what you see over here is that already they know what the child is good at, and they create the environment for the child to grow in that. But unfortunately, when we come to our country, or you come to Africa, at times somebody is even at age 25 and doesn't even know what he or she would like to become in future. Or at times you even apply to enter the university, and the university rather gives you a course that you may not be good at or that you may not like to do. And because of problem with admission, you are compelled to go and do it just to have a certificate. So we don't give off our best, because what we are actually gifted with is not being enhanced. And that is the problem. And there are also times that as parents or caregivers, we rather decide for our children what they should become, without allowing them to develop what they've been blessed with. Every child has something unique. And it's amazing. Even if you have 3 children, just watch them carefully. Even twins, watch them carefully, and you will see the difference. Everyone has something unique. Even if cognitively the child is not that good. The child may be good with the hand, or the child may be good with the heart, affective dimension. And if that part that the child is good at is developed, the child can become a blessing to society. But you see, if that part is not developed, and the child is forced to do something against his wish or her wish, or the environment is not that favorable, then there is inferiority. Whatever you do, you are not at your best. And because you are not at your best, the reward of competence is not manifested. So at times we wonder why, for instance, somebody begins a job today, after a year, the person wants to move on to something else. Or why somebody is working and the person does not experience job satisfaction. It may be because the person is not doing that which he or she is at home with. The person is doing it grudgingly, reluctantly. There is no joy in the work. So if you have such a person as a teacher, as a nurse, as a priest, as a nun, then you can imagine how people will suffer in the hands of the person. Because there is no satisfaction, there is no sense of competence, there is no happiness. And that is stage 4, age 6 to age 12. We come to the 5th stage, the stage of the adolescence. The 5th stage. And it's from age 12 to age 20. Age 12 to age 20. And Eric Erickson says the need here is identity. Identity. And when this need of identity is met, then there is the reward of fidelity. Sense of fidelity as the reward. But if the need of identity is not met, then there is the punishment of role confusion. Role confusion. What does he mean when he talks about identity? My dear friends, the conflict at this stage is identity versus role conflict. And this happens because at this stage, the child is asking, or the person at this stage is asking a lot of questions. Who am I? What is life all about? Where am I going to? What is my purpose here on earth, and where do I belong? A lot of questions are coming to the person, and the person must be able to find appropriate answers in order to be faithful to that sense of identity. But if at this stage the person's identity is not well defined, then it means that there is role confusion. Anything that happens, the child is part of it. For instance, we wonder why at times our children go to school and the kind of training they had at home, they go to school and then they are influenced negatively by their peers. If the child's identity is clearly defined, and the child knows that there are certain things I cannot do because of where I come from, then when the child goes to school, the child will keep to that sense of identity. But if the rules or the things are not properly defined, the child goes to school and then meets his peers, and then they begin to tell him what is right as against what is wrong. So at times the children come back home and they've changed, and we do not understand why. I remember my first 3 years in the priesthood, I was helping at one of our schools. And the children went for vacation. And when they came back, there was a program on a Saturday. So they came, and the way the girls had dressed was very provocative. The boys too had dressed shabbily. When I went and asked some of the girls, they told me, "Oh, but father, when you travel out, this is what you see. So this one is normal." So you see, they've gone out, they've seen what is being done over there, and they've come back and they are following suit. Why? Because they don't know why they have to dress a certain way. So for them, it is normal. And they wouldn't even mind coming to church dressed that way, because they may not see anything wrong with their way of dressing. Look at even how the young ones of today talk. How some of them talk to adults. The sense of respect is gone. And at times it is because of the effect of globalization. But it is because parents are not actually in charge. Caregivers are not actually in charge. We are all very busy. And because we are very busy, we leave them in the hands of people who are not actually that educated or who are not actually that well cultured. So how then can they form our children? There is a problem. But imagine that at this stage, you help your child to understand what it means to be a Ghanaian, what it means to be Catholic, what it means to be going to church every Sunday, what it means to be a Christian, what it means to pray, what it means to be obedient, what it means to be modest, what it means to be humble. When all these things are taught and properly taught, and the children imbibe these things, it defines them. I remember one time we had a Lenten retreat for some of the children in one of our schools. And I was so impressed when they came for confession and were acknowledging all their sins. And some became so remorseful to the point of weeping. They became so remorseful to the point of weeping. And for me, that is the beginning of holiness. The child knows that I have wronged God. I've wronged my parents. I've done the wrong things. And I have to come before God in humility and ask for mercy. The identity of the child as a Christian is already defined. So when it's like that, then there is fidelity to it. There is faithfulness. But if it's not well defined, the child will do anything and think that it is normal. Scripture says, foundations once destroyed, what can the just do? If the foundation is not properly laid, and later on you want to change the person, it may not be possible. Stage 5, identity versus role confusion. And even as a church, it's important we take our Sunday school formation or programs very seriously. But that is the beginning of the church. And if you don't do it well, they will grow, but the desire to serve, the sense of patriotism, the fear of the Lord will be absent. And that will become a punishment for the church in future. Stage 6, early adulthood. And the need here is intimacy. And when this need is met, there's a sense of love. My dear friends, individuals at this stage seek stable interpersonal relationship with their spouses, with their friends, or with their colleagues. If the outcome is positive, then the intimate relationship is achieved. But if not, individuals become isolated from close human contact. What Eric Emerson would like to drum home over here is that at this stage, every human being craves for intimacy. Stable interpersonal relationships. So if in the house or in the church, people relate very well, there is that reward of love being experienced. If the mother and the father relate very well, that atmosphere of love helps even the child to also become very stable in relating with others. If in the church, the young ones at this stage relate very well, there is that sense of love. But if the relationship is exploitive, is negative, then people rather withdraw. They cut themselves off from human contact because what will be experienced not be love but abuse. So it's important that as parents, when we have children at this stage, we should know what they are seeking for. An interpersonal relationship must be cultivated in a very positive way. And that's the only way that they can have that sense of love. In some homes, the parents are like military officers. So much so that even the children cannot talk freely. Now, when it happens that way and they go out, and they find themselves, especially if you're a young lady, you find yourself in the arms of another man, and you are talking so freely, and you are hearing all the sweet words, you might think that you're already in heaven. Meanwhile, the person may later take advantage of you. But it's because of poor parental guidance and control. The 7th stage is what we call the middle adulthood. And it's from age 30 to age 60. 30 to age 60. And the need here is general activity. General activity versus stagnation. And when the need of general activity is met, there's that sense of productivity. If it's not met, then there is stagnation. What does he mean? General activity from the word generation, as in parents and children, and specifically the unconditional giving that characterizes positive parental love and care for their offsprings. Key element is contributing positively and unconditionally to society and family. That means putting something back into life to the best of one's capabilities. So the person at this stage naturally would like to put something back into life. The person wants to have that sense of productivity, that I'm useful. If from age 30 to 60, you don't have that sense of productivity that you are useful, then for you life is useless. So the need is that you want to feel useful. So that I can look back and say that I'm giving something to society. But if at age 60, you don't have that sense of usefulness, you don't see yourself as being productive. And when it happens that way, you become a burden instead of a blessing. And there are people in the world like that. They don't feel that they are a blessing to society. They look into their lives and they don't see that they've been able to achieve anything. So there is stagnation. Stagnation because what they are supposed to experience within and then share with society is absent. So there's a feeling of selfishness, self-indulgence, greed, lack of interest even in young people and the future generations. All they think about is themselves. Because for them, society has not offered much. And there is no way they can also offer to society. The last stage is old age. So those who are 60 plus belong to this stage. And Erickson says it's the stage of ego integrity versus despair. And if the need of ego integrity is met, there is wisdom. What he wants to say is that it governs the way the individual looks upon the whole of his life. It's a time of reflection, a time of looking back and examining one's life and taking stock. Because at age 60, you go on retirement. So if you look back and you don't feel that you have done anything at all, then there is a challenge of despair. You give up. So if the early psychosocial crisis, what we have talked about right from age 0 to this stage, have not been successfully resolved, one does not adjust well to life's issues, the person develops and there is despair. But if the person adjusts well to life's victories and failures, the mature adult develops the peak of adjustment, which is integrity. It's a sense of ego that develops when the individual experiences satisfaction, accepting one's place and one's past. So the person knows that now I am on retirement. I am supposed to rest because I've worked very well. The person is content with life. It's not the time for the person to come and fight with young ones over position. But the person knows that I have done my part. What is left is for me to now sit and inspire others. And that is the beginning of wisdom. But you see, this can only be experienced when the person feels that yes, he or she has done well. But if not, the person's retrospective glance reveals a life not well lived. So there's a feeling of frustration, anger, and individuals may view themselves with disgust and despair. There are times that in our families, in our churches, we have people who are around this stage, and wherever they are, there is confusion. Whenever they appear, they want to be heard. If not, it means that they are absent. So they want to be heard. And in trying to be heard, they rather do the negative things because there is a problem, a psychosocial problem. So the sense of wisdom is not being experienced. My dear friends, these are the 8 stages of development developed by Erik Erikson. And in each of these stages, we have seen how if the needs are met, they come with rewards. And if they are not met, they come with punishment. And that's why parents and caregivers and the church must be careful in what they do. Because as to whether these children become blessings or not, it depends on the kind of environment we create. Let me be quick to add that children learn largely by what they watch or what they see, rather than what they are told to do. They learn a lot by what they see and what they watch, rather than what they are told to do. So if in the home, the parents tell their children, go to church, it is good to go to church, meanwhile they themselves will not go, there is a problem. If in the home, the parents tell their children, don't fight when you go to school, but the children see them always fighting, then there's a problem. So there was a research that was done at Stanford University on communication. And the result of the research is this. 45% of what we communicate is expressed just by the body. 45% of what we communicate is just by the body. 20% is communicated by the tone of the voice. The tone of the voice. 35% by the words and phrases we use. The words and phrases are only 35%. In effect, 65% of what we communicate is non-verbal. 65% of what we communicate is non-verbal. What we communicate verbally is only 35%. No wonder they say actions speak louder than words. Actions speak louder than words. Begin to imagine how you have communicated often in a non-verbal way, and how that communication might have brought problems rather than solutions. So that is the challenge. It's my prayer, therefore, that God, who gives us gifts of human beings who come in the form of children, God, who also believes in us, and for that matter, gives us gifts as parents to help these children to grow, will guide all of us in our responsibilities, so that in everything that we do in our homes and in the church, that sense of responsibility will guide us, so that our homes become blessings for the church, and the church become a blessing to humanity. May God bless you all. Amen.